Okay, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. In this video, I wanted to talk about how interfaith marriages, so Muslims marrying people of other religions, more specifically, Muslim men marrying women of other religions. More specifically, Muslim men marrying Christian and Jewish women. I make the argument that it's a terrible, terrible idea, and it should not be encouraged. And I don't even think it's Islamic, and I'll prove why. There's a verse in the Quran that says, it basically says that Muslim men can marry pious and chaste. So that's virgin. Chaste is another word for virgin. So Muslim men can marry pious and chaste Christian and Jewish women. Okay. But I honestly believe that this verse it's contextual. It's one of those verses that requires context, understanding, and you can come to the conclusion that it was a verse that was meant specifically for a certain time and place. Okay. This verse, it's often used by Muslim men to marry women in the West. So in other words, blonde-haired, blue-eyed, big-chested, big-waisted, big-butt women. This verse is used by Muslim men as an excuse to marry these kinds of women. And 99 times out of 100, these women are not pious. They don't dress appropriately, and they're usually not virgins. So automatically they're disqualified according to the Quran. But Muslim men use that verse as an excuse to marry these kinds of women. And it's sad how the Muslim community turns a blind eye to this. This verse has conditions. And these conditions are, I'm telling you right now, they are never met by Christian and Jewish women. They're never met. Within Christianity, there have been, I think, 2 major reformations of the religion. So, now we have Protestants and Reformed Catholics. And Protestants are divided into, I think 20 different sects, 20 different branches. These groups and branches of Christianity and the Reformations, they did not exist when Islam was revealed. There was no Catholic or Protestant or Greek Orthodox or Coptic Christian or Baptist or Lutheran or Mormon at that time. None of these existed at that time. It was just one Christian religion. And as well, there's Christians in Africa and South America. They often mix their Christian religion with pagan beliefs. Muslims do it as well, actually. There's Muslims in Africa who mix in, Islam with pagan beliefs. So yeah, Christians do it. They mix their religion with polytheist beliefs. And on top of that, African Christians and South American Christians are also very sexually open. So again, these women don't meet the conditions required that Muslim men can use to marry them. There is no such thing as a pious and chaste Christian woman. It's incredibly, incredibly, incredibly rare. Christians, especially in the West, are very secularized. They're very liberalized. They have watered down their religion so much. It's really become a joke. They have watered down and secularized and liberalized the already reformed categories of Christianity. So you have, Christianity, and then hundreds of years later you have reformations, which throws them, which doesn't allow Muslims to marry them because of the reformations. And then on top of that, you have Christians who have secularized and liberalized and watered down the religion. They've watered down the Reformation. And I'm not talking about the liberal Christians. I'm talking about Christians, actual conservative Christians. Actual conservative Christians are very secular people. They're very liberal people. A lot of times they're too dumb to realize they're not even following Christianity. Christians in the West, they accept things. They're open to having a boyfriend or a girlfriend. They're open to having premarital intercourse. The only thing they throw a fuss about is abortion. But they're open to having premarital intercourse. They're open to drinking alcohol and having a party culture. These are conservative Christians I'm talking about, not liberal. So automatically they are disqualified. The Christian women are disqualified from Muslim men marrying them. They were already disqualified 800, 900 years ago when the Reformations happened, and now they're double disqualified for being secularized and liberalized and watering down their religion. I live in the West. There's Christian schools all around me. I see the behavior of Christian teens. It's exactly the same as atheists in public schools. It's exactly the same as liberal Christians. There is no such thing as a conservative Christian. They do exist in the West, but they are only conservative when it comes to guns. They're only conservative when it comes to abortion. Other than that, they've accepted everything that actually goes against their religion. conservative Christians are open to premarital intercourse. They don't have a problem with it. They're open to wearing, clothes that are immodest. They have no problem wearing bikinis. They have no problem showing off their chests. Zero problem. And again, it's because they've become so secularized. And again, I'm not talking about liberal Christians, I'm talking about conservative Christians. Putting their behavior aside, so many Muslim men use this verse just to marry these white women, these women who are sexually open. They might not even identify as Christian, but unfortunately, somehow white equals Christian or Jewish, and many Muslim men take advantage of this, and they use that Quranic verse to marry these kinds of women, even if they're atheist or agnostic. Putting this aside, the Quran says Muslim men can marry pious and chaste virgin Christian and Jewish women. But think about it. Would a pious Christian woman, would a pious Jewish woman, if a Muslim man is married to her, would a pious Christian woman or a Jewish woman ever let her kids grow up to be another religion, like Muslim? That would never happen. Pious or conservative Christian and Jewish women, they won't let their kids be Muslim. That'll never happen. Why? Because Christianity and Judaism, they both see Islam as a heretic religion, as a false religion. Judaism sees Christianity as a false religion. Christianity sees Islam as a false religion. And both Judaism and Christianity see Islam as a false religion. Why would you marry someone of that faith? Why would you marry someone who rejects our prophet, our holy book, our ethics and morals? Islam has so many ethics and morals that you're supposed to do, which are not found in Christianity and Judaism. Why would you marry a woman who doesn't believe in any of this? Christianity says the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, he's a false prophet. That's what Christianity says. Same with Judaism. Judaism sees Jesus as a false person. Christians see him as God, and we see him as a prophet. But Judaism sees him as a false leader. Judaism also rejects the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. So why would any Muslim man marry a woman, a Christian or Jewish woman? As I said, this verse it's about context. All conservative religious people have a sense of protection over their religion and family. They will never let their children be a different religion. So again, it makes no sense to me. Why would you marry a Christian or Jewish woman? They will never pass Islam down to your offspring. They'll pass down Christianity or Judaism. When you research about this verse and you come across online Islamic forums or videos by scholars explaining this verse, they always say, oh, this verse is allowed because Muslim men are supposed to be the leaders of the household, so they'll never let their kids be be anything else except Muslim. But again, that never happens. You can't do that. A conservative Christian woman, a conservative Jewish woman, when it says in their Bible and Torah that non-Christians and non-Jews are going to hell, why would they let their own kids be a different religion? They wouldn't. So yeah, as I said, this verse it's conditional. There's multiple verses in the Quran that talks about marriage, and where it directly speaks to Muslim married couples. This verse about marrying of Muslim men being allowed to marry Christian and Jewish women, it stands out from these other verses. It's different from these other verses. These other verses, they, as I said, they directly speak to married Muslim couples, married Muslim men and women. So you can already tell that the status quo, the norm from the Quran, is for Muslims to marry other Muslims. And I'll link an article or a little blog post that I did a few years back that shows all these verses. That clearly shows these verses are talking to married Muslim men and Muslim women. It talks about these verses talk directly to married Muslim couples, married Muslim men and Muslim women. They talk to Muslim men and Muslim women who are married to each other, and I'll link to it in the description below. Talking about Judaism, the largest branch of Judaism currently, it's Reform and Secular Judaism. Two different branches. Both of these, this Reform Judaism and Secular Judaism, the biggest branches of Judaism right now, they weren't around at the time of the Prophet, peace be upon him. They weren't around when Islam was revealed. If you're married to a religious Jewish woman and she wants to go live in Israel and live on a settlement, a Palestinian settlement, and that's where the majority of the religious and Orthodox Jewish people live, because the main cities of Israel are too secular for them. Conservative Jews love Israel. Would you marry a conservative Jewish woman who loves Israel? It makes no sense to me why so many Muslim men marry non-Muslim women. It makes no sense to me why the Muslim community turns a blind eye towards this. Christian and Jewish people are very secular, very liberal. And again, I'm not talking about the liberal ones, I'm talking about the conservative ones. I really, show my disgust at sheikhs and Muslim scholars and speakers who always give lectures about, Muslim men and how they need to avoid certain kinds of Muslim women. But they don't care if these Muslim men will marry Christian and Jewish women. The overwhelming majority of whom already come from sexually open cultures and liberal and secular cultures. But these Muslim speakers, they will tell Muslim men, don't marry this kind of Muslim woman. But when it comes to, marrying Christian Jewish women, they're quiet. It makes no sense to me. I read in my video about how many Muslim parents failed, I mentioned briefly about interfaith marriages and how they never work, how they never produce good practicing Muslim children. I've read the bios of countless people, countless celebrities and athletes and academics and politicians and journalists. Octomom, also known as Nadia Suleiman. All these people that I mentioned, many times, they have a Muslim father and a non-Muslim mother. And look at their lifestyles. The kids are never Muslim. There's so many, celebrities and athletes who have a Muslim father, but look at what they're doing. Octomom. 8 kids out of wedlock. Currently, I just read her profile. Currently in a relationship with a non-Muslim man. Her father was Palestinian. He was a Palestinian Muslim, but he married a white woman or a non-Muslim woman out of lust. Maybe he used the excuse that, hey, the Quran gives me the right to marry these kinds of women. Look at his daughter. She does porn too. The kids of marriages between a Muslim father and a non-Muslim mother, always non-practicing, always irreligious, many times even atheist or agnostic. Muslims need to stop being so shocked and surprised when they see such kinds of people, when they see such kinds of people who have a Muslim father, but the kid themselves, they're doing whatever they feel like, and there's Muslims who are shocked at this, like, oh, how could you do that? You're a Muslim. Wrong. The father was a Muslim. Mother was not a Muslim. Father married the wife out of lust. Father used the excuse that he can marry these kinds of women because the Quran says so. But, there is no religion involved here. An example is, Zayn Malik, the British singer. His father is Pakistani. His mother is white. I would always see comments, because this guy had tattoos and stuff, and he had, relationships outside of marriage, and I would see comments like, oh, if he's Muslim, then he shouldn't do this. And then there was a news article a few years back where he said he's not Muslim at all. He's an atheist. And that annoyed a lot of Muslims. And I'm just like, why? You should have already known that the Muslim father, the Pakistani Muslim father, doesn't give a damn about religion. He doesn't care about Islam. He might say he's a Muslim. He might think he's practicing, but he married a white woman who was not Muslim. And look what happened. Look at the kid. Look at Zayn Malik. Look what happened. Tattoos, relationships outside of marriage. Now says he's not Muslim at all. And there's Muslims who are surprised at this. Like, no, you don't need to be surprised. I don't get why so many Muslims get upset when they see a celebrity who says they're Muslim, but they only say they're Muslim because their father was a Muslim. But they themselves live openly sinful lifestyles, and then it sends shockwaves throughout the Muslim community. Like, there's no need to get shocked. Having religious children, it's impossible when the Muslim father marries a non-Muslim woman. And I fault many Muslim scholars. I fault them. I criticize them because they can't see this. They blindly say, yeah, Islam allows marriage to these Christian Jewish women, and that's it. End of discussion. Aren't these Muslim scholars helping these Muslim men marry out of lust and give and raise offspring who have no idea what Islam is all about? If there ever is a Quran verse that has been watered down and secularized, it's this verse right here about men being allowed to marry pious Christian and Jewish women. Many Muslim men, when they marry Christian or Jewish women, I mean, they don't even mention. Sorry, many Muslims, when they say that Muslim men can marry non-Muslim women, or like, they don't mention the pious Christian or Jewish part anymore because it's become so secularized and liberalized. They just say, yeah, Muslim men can marry non-Muslim women. Muslims who say that Muslim men can marry non-Muslim women, these Muslims, they lack the IQ to read the Quran verse and say and read the conditions that are laid out there. Many Muslim men have become secularized and liberalized. I mentioned this in my feminism video. And the Quran mentioned a very specific kind of Christian Jewish woman at the time. But because many Muslim men have become secularized, they just say, oh, this verse says I can marry non-Muslim women, like a blanketed term. They don't mention Christian Jewish women anymore because these Muslim men have become so secular and liberal. There's no need for them to say it. Muslim men who marry Christian and Jewish women, they put their faith at an equal level to the faith of their spouse. They put their faith at an equal level to kufr beliefs that go against Islam. When you put your faith alongside at an equal level of a different religion, it's an insult to Islam. Many Orthodox and conservative Muslim sheikhs, like Salafis, they say Muslims can't be in the same room as people of a different religion because our religions are at an equal level at this point. They say we can't even have interfaith dialogues because we put our religions at an equal playing field. We put Islam at an equal playing field to Christianity and Judaism. I mean, doesn't this apply to marriages as well? Doesn't it apply when Muslim men marry Christian Jewish women? A flawed equivalency to this Are those Muslims who ask their non-Muslim girlfriend, even boyfriend, if you want to use that, um, there's Muslim women who marry non-Muslim men, and the result is the exact same thing. Children are always not Muslim. A flawed equivalency to this is, when they ask their non-Muslim boyfriends and girlfriends to convert to Islam just so they can marry. These relationships also have zero religious significance, because a spouse who converts, or a boyfriend or girlfriend who converts to Islam to marry a Muslim, they convert just to marry them. These marriages have no Islamic significance. The children of these marriages, the same thing. Children are never religious. Children have no idea what Islam is all about. So it's the exact same thing. If you have a boyfriend or girlfriend and they convert to Islam just so they can marry you, it's the same thing as these Muslim men using this verse to chase after big-chested women. It's the exact same thing, because there is no Islam in it. Children are never practicing Muslims. You can't have a religiously neutral household. I know there's Muslim husbands who have a non-Muslim wife, or a Muslim wife and a non-Muslim husband. It's common sometimes to hear that, oh, they celebrate both religions. They celebrate Eid, then they celebrate Hanukkah, or they celebrate Eid, then they celebrate Christmas. You can't have a religiously neutral household in Islam. It doesn't work. You think you're living a religiously harmonious lifestyle? Doesn't work. In Islam, Muslim children can only learn Islam and practice Islam and not other religions. There's so many Christian and Jewish religious events that go against Islam. Why would you have this in your household? Why would you let your kids participate in it? It's contradictory. I'm going to talk about this in my racism and Islamophobia video, but marrying non-Muslims, it can lead to racism. It often does. And it'll affect your mental health. It'll affect the mental health of your kids. When a Muslim man marries a white woman, white nationalists and white supremacists and European nationalists, they see that women are usually, they give birth to future generations. And when they see them with a Muslim man, how do you think they feel? Angry. They'll probably be violent if they have an opportunity to be violent. Muslim men take a huge risk if they go to a European country or rural America or rural Canada, where it's just conservative white people, and you try and marry a white woman, it'll lead to disaster. You will face racism. Your mental health will decline. If you have kids, there's so many stories of kids coming from biracial backgrounds who suffer a lot of racism and mental mental distress, and you will put your kid through that. If you're a Muslim man and you marry a white woman and you have a child who's biracial, they will be bullied at school, bullied in the workplace. We like to think racism is dead. It's not. It's alive and well, and I feel like it's getting stronger. Muslim men who marry Western women, especially out of lust, they never consider any of this. I'll talk more about racism and Islamophobia in a different video. So yeah, many Muslim men use this as an excuse to marry, many Muslim men use the verse of being allowed to marry pious and virgin Christian women and Jewish women. They use this verse to marry women from Christian majority places, but they're very sexually open. I mentioned South America. It's a place that, they take Catholicism pretty seriously, but they're very sexually open. They're very sexually open people. And many Muslim men, they don't care. They'll just say, no, the Quran says I can marry Christian and Jewish women, so I'm going to do it. I'm going to date them. Dating's already haram, but to them, they don't care. To them, when they see the Quran saying that you can marry pious and conservative and virgin Christian and Jewish women, they think this gives them the permission to date outside of marriage, date these non-Muslim women. It's sad how imams and sheikhs and Muslim speakers and Muslims in general, they don't really speak up about this. You're letting a Muslim man commit a sin. You're letting a Muslim man have children who celebrate other religions, who commit shirk. You're supporting a Muslim man whose kids will never pass Islam down to their own kids. Half Muslims who consider themselves to be half Muslims because they have a Muslim father or even a Muslim mother, they never understand Islam. I've seen it personally. I talked about celebrities and athletes and whatnot earlier. They don't get Islam. They're whitewashed people. Islam places a heavy emphasis on women being the primary caregivers and teachers of religion and teachers of Islam to children. How do you do that with a Christian or Jewish wife? Or supposedly a quote-unquote Christian or a quote-unquote Jewish woman? How are these Christian Jewish women going to raise good Muslim children? They won't. They're either too secular and liberal themselves to teach religion in general, or if they're conservative, they won't teach Islam. They'll teach Christianity and Judaism. So I want to talk about this verse specifically and why it was needed, and how it's a verse that it's a context verse. This verse was needed because there's a few reasons. Such marriages were already practiced between Christian and Jewish and Muslims before this, this verse was revealed. Interfaith marriages to pagans also existed. For example, Aisha, the Prophet's wife, the man she was first engaged to was a pagan. So this verse was probably a step to weed out the marriages between Muslims and pagans that were happening. So, the rule became, Christian and Jewish women for Muslim men only, because, there's obviously similarities between Islam, Christianity, and Judaism. The second reason is this is the one that I really feel strongly about, and it's probably the most accurate. Many Muslim men were traders, businessmen, diplomats, and they went to countries where there were no Muslim women. So what are they going to do? Who are they going to marry? They can't commit adultery or fornication. There were a lot more Christian and Jewish women at that time than Muslims. So it made sense when these Muslim men, when they traveled away from home, for business and whatnot, to marry these women, these Christian Jewish women who were already in abundance. Like, think about it. A Muslim trader or a businessman or a diplomat who has to travel really far away probably won't see his family again. At that time, that's how travel was. There's no phones or anything, so you travel really far away and set up your business or whatnot. And there's no Muslim women around, so you can't marry. But as I said, there were a lot more Christian and Jewish women than Muslims around. So, that's why it was allowed. There were probably pagans around too, but obviously Islam drew the line at Christianity and Judaism. So you get the idea why this verse existed, right? It's contextual. It requires context. And just like many verses that, require context and conditions, they can't be met in modern times. So I'm going to say it again. Muslim men who were businessmen, who had to travel far, far away, and obviously as a Muslim you can't commit fornication, so you travel far, far away, and there are a lot more Christian Jewish women around. So that's why, and Islam is, there's obviously a lot of similarities between those two religions. So obviously that's why the permission was given. On social media, I often come across a lot of right-wing, conservative Christian women. There's a lot of conservative Christian politicians in the U.S., a lot of conservative Christian activists, and I see them all the time. Immodest dressing, tattoos. You're telling me these women are the women that the Quran mentions? No, that's an insult to the Quran. It's an insult to Islam. I see sometimes so many trash looking tattooed women with a light headscarf around their head and a baby in the stroller, and there is a Muslim man next to her. A Muslim man probably saw her. He's probably an immigrant, because many Muslim men born and raised in the West who marry non-Muslim women, these Muslim men are already secularized themselves, so there's no need to tell these women to, cover their heads. It's common to see a Muslim man who's an immigrant who comes to a Western country, sees a white woman, easy access to sex. Some of these trashy looking women, they'll have sex with anybody, and of course these Muslim male immigrants are going to take advantage of this. And when they do it, they go, oh shoot, we should have gotten married first. So they marry them, these Muslim men marry them, but you can always tell there's something off with these kinds of women. I have seen Muslim male immigrants marry like the trashiest white trash kind of women. Toothless, tattoos, overweight. And at the same time, he tells her to cover her head. Stupid. These are not the women that the Quran allows men to marry. I used to work at a government job many years ago. I could see a lot of info on household members, more specifically immigrants. And it was really common to see a Muslim male immigrant who just recently immigrated living with a non-Muslim woman. I could see it. The data was right there. Their names are right there. These men are obviously they're rebelling against Islam. But if they're caught, what will they say? They'll say, oh no, the Quran says I can marry Christian and Jewish women. These men are committing blasphemy against Islam. Yeah, I mentioned in my feminism video how Muslim men can easily get away with anything sinful, anything blasphemous, because we live in such a cucked world where Muslim men can do anything they want to. I am a Muslim man, I can do anything I want to. No one's gonna really correct me. If you try to correct these Muslim men who marry these dirty kind of women, they will somehow Islamically justify it. Give me a break. Okay, so in conclusion, Muslim men cannot marry non-Muslim women. Muslim men cannot marry Christian and Jewish women, because the Christian Jewish women at the time of when Islam was revealed, they no longer exist. Christianity has been through 2 major reformations, which already disqualifies Muslims from marrying them. And these reformations happened 800, 900 years ago. And on top of that, Christian women today, Christian and Jewish women today, Christian Jewish women today, very secularized, very liberalized. And I'm talking about the conservative Christian and conservative Jewish women, not the liberal ones. Conservative Christian women, conservative Jewish women, liberalized, secularized, they have watered down their religion so much. Churches and synagogues, they have watered down Christianity and Judaism so much. Okay, so and Judaism has been through a couple of reformations as well, and the biggest branches of Judaism right now are secular Judaism and Reform Judaism, which is, watered down Judaism. So they're disqualified from they're disqualified for marriage. And another point that I mentioned, Muslim men who marry non-Muslim women, and when they have kids are never proper Muslims. They never practice Islam. They don't even know the basics of Islam. Basics that 5-year-old Muslim kids already know about. There's 5-year-old Muslim kids who know more about Islam than these half Muslims who are doctors and lawyers and engineers and whatnot. And this verse, as I mentioned, was allowed because many Muslim men were traders and businessmen, and there were a lot more Christian Jewish women around when they went far, far away. When they went far, far away, there were no Muslim women, but there were a lot of Christian Jewish women at that time. So yeah, obviously marriage was easy to them. But even then, so, I do have my doubts that these marriages, were popular, because a pious Christian woman, a pious Jewish woman would never let her kids be Muslim. Never. Christianity and Judaism see Islam as a cult, as a false religion. So yeah, that was the reason why. The Quran also has this is another way of the Quran telling us that we can only marry Muslims. The Quran is full of metaphors and different ways to understand, and this is probably a different way to understand that we can only marry Muslims. And I mentioned earlier that I'm going to link below to a article or a blog post that I did a few years back, where there's numerous Quran verses that I show that they clearly and specifically refer to Muslim couples. They clearly and specifically refer to Muslim men and Muslim women who are married to each other. Okay. Thanks for listening.